Hello, and Eric, the racket scientist here. It's been a while since I've come to you with a video, and that's because I've gone on another trip, and don't know if you can hear from the audio, but I'm also kind of at the tail end of a small cold, so apologies if I sound a little weird. But yeah, I mean, first of all, where was I? I was traveling in Switzerland, and it was not, primary purpose of the travel was not for badminton, but being me, I had badminton in mind while I was traveling there. And so I thought it was a good chance to take a look at, to see what some of the shops in, in Europe had. I didn't go too far on my way, so I did find one shop in Switzerland. I was mainly staying in Zurich, but found a shop in Winterthur, which is just a quick train ride away, that had some stuff that caught my eye. And so I decided to get some rackets of brands that I have not really seen before. And so we start today with this Babolat racket. And if you've heard the Babolat brand name, and it's probably going to be from tennis, since a lot of high-profile tennis players use this brand. But they do make badminton rackets, although they don't seem to be too popular on in terms of pros using them. That being said, it did seem, just kind of browsing shops in Europe, it did seem that it was, popular enough that like people will use them. So I don't know if it's necessarily as obscure as, Wilson or Adidas badminton rackets in the US or whatever, which, by the way, those are also kind of on my list. So what model is this? This is X-Feel Origin, and I think it was a little hard to kind of get to know the models, because the European brands, they model their rackets a little differently than the Asian brands do, whereas the Asian brands, a lot of them tend to use numbers, like Yonex and Victor, or actually Victor does use numbers, but they also use random letters and shit. But Li-Ning uses numbers, that makes it fairly easy. The European brands kind of go about it a little differently. Specifically with Babolat, I think the X-Feel line is supposed to be like a high-end line, and I think the kind of the word after is, so like the Origin, I think, is supposed to be like an all-around control racket, and there was also the Spark, which is kind of more of a power racket. So it's pretty affordable. I think this was maybe $140 US. Although my impression was that this was a top line racket, so I don't know if it's just because I was very close to the place of origin. Although I will mention that despite the fact that this is, so Babolat is a French brand, you can actually see got a French flag up here, and it actually says designed in France. But this racket actually is, if I can find it, yeah, it says it's made in China, so I think that's interesting that it's designed in France, produced in China, shipped all the way back. I always think it's funny when products are not really available in the country that they're actually manufactured in. So, like, even though this is made in China, you probably wouldn't necessarily be able to find this in China, which is fine. It's just, it's not like there was a need to do that. But yeah, anyways, so let's get started, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about this as I start on this grip, if I can find if there's no perforation. So we're just gonna kind of raw dog it, or maybe use some scissors to create perforation. So I think one thing that I noticed kind of immediately is that It's hard to say since this is just one racket, so I'm not going to place too much emphasis on any specific features. But my impression looking at European branded rackets like Babolat and Forza was that they are not following the trend of like having shorter shafts. This is actually quite a long one by modern standards. And, you know, again, top line racket. So you could possibly attribute that to the fact that Europeans tend to be taller and tend to have, you know, longer swings. So that could be it. I also noticed that none of the European brands really kind of subscribe to the new age cones. They're all just simple, which is fine. I don't mind that. We also noticed that this is a fully recessed frame, so this is their control one. And just based on the aerodynamics of the frame, I would guess that, yeah, that it probably handles pretty well. Yeah. I think a lot of the European racket models do tend to be heavier too. Like, they have an idea. They have the concept of 4U and 3U that exists, but typically when they advertise the racket, they advertise just the exact like weight. So like this racket does say 3U in it, but really they just emphasize the fact that it's I think it's 85 grams, which is like literally the, you know, bottom end of 3U anyways. And you know, and my impression is that this is considered a, you know, fairly kind of standard like doubles racket. The singles ones are even heavier. They go up to like 88 or 90 grams, which is, you know, the higher end of 3U. So Europeans like their heavy rackets. And in order to get like really into 4U territory, like under, you know, significantly under 85 grams, you need to, a lot of those are specifically called aero or light rackets, which I found funny. So yeah, you know, those Europeans much physically stronger than us Asians, so you get those longer shafts and heavier rackets, I suppose. Yeah, coming back to this here, now we see a lot of double-sided tape here, but we're also seeing that it peels off quite easily. So I'm going to try my best to take as much of this off by hand as possible, because I feel that that's probably going to be a possibility. Finding rackets like this is really kind of what my hobby is about, because I think very few people are going to watch this or even going to care about what this racket is. But, you know, the part of me is really just wants to know what it's like. And don't even get me started on selling this, because I don't think anyone's really going to know what this is, so it's going to be pretty hard to sell if I do. I mean, who knows? It could be something that I end up liking. And I suppose there's no reason to keep it a secret, but the other racket that I got is a Forza racket, and that one's probably less of a surprise, because Forza is actually the most popular European brand that people know of. It's made in Denmark, or not made in, but like designed, a Denmark-based company, and quite a few players, pro players, actually use those, notably Danish players. So I'll do that one next. And speaking of the shop in Winterthur that I went to, it was it was a pro shop attached to the badminton gym, so it was not a standalone shop. In fact, I don't really think that there were any standalone badminton shops near where I was. Simply not popular enough, I suppose. But again, for a pro shop attached to a gym, they had a pretty wide variety of products, which was kind of impressive to me. Usually I think of like shops attached to gyms as ones that are, they just have the most popular stuff because they tend to be really small. But I mean, for this one to have, Yonex, Victor, and even brands like Babolat and Forza. And, yeah. Gym's called racketshop.ch in Winterthur. So if any of you guys happen to find yourselves in Switzerland and you want to go play, that's definitely one place you could go play. I mean, despite the sport not being popular in a strict sense, it's not so difficult to find places to play, I think, just because in general, I think this just in general applies to Europe, that the whole idea of community recreation is significantly more common in Europe than it is in America, whereas like a lot of for most sports that you want to play in America, you're gonna have to go like to privatized commercial gyms. I mean, you can go to a community center and play badminton. I suppose that's true, but it's really not going to be so common outside of cities where badminton is really actually popular. But then, you have stuff like frisbee and soccer and basketball that really easy to play pickup games. Okay, so I think I've done all I can here. So if we're gonna start using Gugon, then I suppose this would be the time to do it. So I was hoping I could avoid this, but it is what it is. Life is kind of like gripping rackets. Sometimes you have to go through those annoying and gross parts to get to the fun part. And those who do are rewarded. As I am here, I get to do the fun part. Running out of that soon. Okay, and whoa, this is really tacky. What the heck? It's like sticking to itself. All right. This is a very strange color. It's not like red. It's kind of this weird, fleshy. Anyways, it's fine. It was free. So something else interesting that I noticed was that, at least for the European brands, all the even the high-end rackets, like, I guess this one is a high-end racket, but like even the Forza ones as well. And we're talking, when I say high-end, I mean like, you know, these are models that the pro players are using as well. They all come pre-strung, and you'll know from other brands like, you know, Yonex and Victor and such, that really only the lower tier models come pre-strung. So it's very strange to me that the high-end models come pre-strung, because, like, you know, you're obviously gonna want your own string and tension on there. So I guess it's just kind of this idea that you want to be able to theoretically play with it immediately. But it's kind of a strange mentality, though, because if you're buying a racket kind of at this price point, it's, you know, it's really, most of it's lost on you if you're using strings like this. But you could also argue that from a business perspective, for the people who, you know, want something off the shelf and don't mind spending that much money, you're kind of losing that market as well. So yeah, I just noticed that there's actually a red mark right here around this grommet, and I don't know if that's meant to be to indicate that that's where you're supposed to tie the knot. So that's interesting. But yeah, the strings on here, really low tension, do not sound very good. So I'm gonna get this restrung, and hopefully I will get to play with it in a couple days. And anyways, you know what's coming next. Next video will be on the Forza racket. And if you're excited for that, stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.